Thank you so much. So my name's Justin Buck. I presented to this call about a year ago, maybe a little bit more. And since then I've changed jobs. So I've actually moved within National Oceanography Centre to the Marine Autonomous Robotic Systems Group. And I'm going to show you one of the first pieces of work I'm working on in that group, which is actually building a digital twin to try and simulate ocean observation and ocean observation technologies. And it's a brand new project. We started it in January. It was funded in November by a research council. It's a research project, so it's not commercial. And as an organisation, we operate effectively a broad range of these autonomous platforms in the ocean. So here on the right side, you can see this thing called ocean gliders, about 50 kilos each. And we can run them for thousands of kilometres across the ocean with kind of small sensor packages to measure all kinds of basic environmental parameters for the research community and also the operational community. And to give an idea of kind of the types of the kind of scale of things we do, you can see that we're now up to, this is actually in the last 12 months, 25,000 hours of glider activity at sea, or to some which are bigger platforms, nearly 2,000 hours. And that's actually much greater than our research ships in terms of the hours they do. And this has actually created some key challenges around what we do, which is why we then actually bid for the project to actually make these operations easier and more scalable using digital twin. In terms of what we're trying to do, we're trying to actually enable researchers to have more control over the operations and actually more control over what we do, because we actually operate them on behalf of the research community, and our pilots do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of what the gliders do and how they do it. And we actually want to make that more accessible to researchers, whilst actually making sure we've still got the pilots accountable because they're responsible for these platforms. We actually want to make those the observations we actually measure with these platforms more valuable to operational models and research people like Met Office. And we actually want to make it more efficient. So as the number of platforms goes up, we actually want to, the amount of headcount of staff we've got is going to remain relatively static. So we actually need to make it a more efficient process. Because of all those challenges we have around the operational platforms, we effectively created a project called MASTT, which is Marine Autonomous Systems Digital Twin. And we're actually simulating those observations of the platforms. So you can actually see this is just off the coast of the northeast of the UK. And this is a track of a glider. And you can see that we actually struggled with currents here. It actually came off track and actually got pushed south. So we're creating this digital twin here. So we've got our operations on one side, and we've actually got kind of the planning systems on another. And the observations themselves are the physical element, with kind of this simulation that we're doing to actually drive that being kind of the virtual element. We've got what we call objective generation. This is where we see researchers connecting to the system. Mission planner, it's actually an AI machine learning enabled system to actually generate those plans based on what the researchers need. Execution monitoring, that actually connects to the operations and the pilots. The pilot's still down here with that accountability. We've got performance indicators to show how well we're doing, and we actually want to bring in Earth observations. And so we've got this feedback here to operational models. This is where you get that true two-way feedback to the operation between what the gliders are doing and what the models are doing, to hopefully actually see improvements in how we're observing key currents in the North Sea for the Met Office. We're building it around different use cases. So the first is around autonomous waypoint navigation. So researchers will give us a set of waypoints. And then we actually want to create, instead of having the pilots actually control the gliders to actually generate the plans to actually get there, we'll have the system generating those plans, which the pilots can then approve to make that process more efficient. Which improves the value of the glider observations operational models. So this is actually off the northeast coast of Scotland. It's deployments that we run for the UK Met Office. And they actually collect data in near real time. And there's a key current here called the Dooley current, which we actually observe, and actually goes into actually improving the weather forecast, the ocean models, which then turn into weather forecasts. And then we actually want to make it easier for people to plan and evaluate missions in the region of currents, because we actually bring currents, complex currents in the ocean. This is kind of quite a geeky slide. The key thing I want to show is that in the middle, we've got what we call the communications backbone. And then on the outside here, we've got all these interoperable kind of connections between the different layers and different services. This is some mission planner. This is Oxford Robotics Institute they're building for us. This is the element where the gliders are piloted. And this is effectively the kind of the GUI which people can use to generate objectives. And the key thing is that you want all of these arrows here to be interoperable and based on standards. And that builds on the previous project I showed just last year called the Information Management Framework. And this will scale. So last couple of slides, we actually want to actually bring in more things. Because we're building this interoperable backbone and we're building an effective modular twin from different components, we actually want to bring in other things, for example, Polar Route and IceNet. So that means when we operate platforms and sea ice, we can bring in those data flows and those to connect to those digital twins to help us run the operations. We can bring more currents. And then we've got here what we call a registry here, and that's effectively kind of the shop front so people can discover it. And kind of looking at this as part of the wider digital twins community, we continue to develop the standards and ontologies. Key thing is that's open. And we actually want to work in the community on that interoperable components. So the way I see it is we have kind of a Lego box full of bits of Lego and we can build the twin as we need with those interoperable components. And we actually want to work on those standards to make that possible. We actually want to work across the UK where we've got Turin on the project as well. And we're going to be running some workshops in interoperable digital twins. And we'll be extending the invite to this group here. And then we've got what we call our senior stakeholder forum at the Research Council level. And they kind of help us understand those priorities the Research Council has, and we can feed that to the projects and the outputs. One of the key questions that always comes up at these meetings is how can we get this information, how we use this? We're actually currently also bidding for more money as another project to open source this type of technology and actually make it more widely available for community. Hopefully second guess that one slightly. And last slide, if you're interested in more details, please contact myself or Alvaro. I'm effectively co-leading this piece of work. And we're super keen to get feedback and interactions and potentially get people from this call as part of the workshop of interoperability. Thank you.
So our first question here, Justin, I believe is to yourself, is can you say some more about how the wireless comms backbone works in the sea?
So effectively our backbone is a message-based server. We actually connect up the base stations for each of the platforms. So effectively the platforms talk to us via Iridium satellite or acoustic comms underwater is one of our long-term ambitions. So we've got more real-time flows. That comes back to our base station, and then the backbone itself is a message-based messaging system, queuing system, and that effectively does all of the interactions.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next question, if I could please, Justin, again for yourself, is would this work also be transferable to airspace, for example, air traffic control or drones?
Potentially drones. So as part of the information management framework work, it was actually cross discipline. So it's actually atmosphere, ocean project working on at the moment. It's very specific to the ocean, but it potentially transfers quite neatly across aerial drones if you've got comms with them.
Very good. And another question for yourself, Justin, is how does the IMFE progress the generic IMF? So that's IMF being Information Management Framework. Where do you think the broader DT community need to put more work behind the IMF this year?
So the key link we've got with this is Turin. So one of the things we had from the previous project called Asset Register, which is a machine readable and human readable description of digital twin. So if you know what's in it, you can discover it. And we're actually starting discussions at the moment about open sourcing that and making that available for the community. So there's a project called Network Plus at Turin. It's actually looking at some of this and progressing these activities.
Very good, thank you. Justin, what ontology do you use? Are they 4D?
Outside my expertise, but if you pop me an email, I can ask Alexandra Kokonaki, who's actually on our project, plus also a number of other digital twins projects, and she can give you a summary of the ontologies that are being used.
Very good, that'd be helpful. And your contact details should be in the chat. If not, we can put them in there so people can reach out to you. That'd be fantastic. Link to the question talk about kind of communication. Acoustic bandwidth is low. How do you get all the data through a narrow pipe?
We have to decimate the data. So we have to define the minimum specification we need to operate the platforms and for operational users. We actually decimate the minimum amount of data back that we need to get back. And then we recover the platforms, and we actually have the kind of the higher volume, full resolution data, which we then get to researchers.